require any introduction.
Yes.
So I believe, Dhruv, let's get on with it because this is going to be an interesting session. And over to you then.
Oh, thank you.
Come Darana through.
So,
Come
sorry.
Darana.
For sure, that is always the endeavor.
Over to you, Dhruv. All the
Okay,
best.
thank you, thank you, thanks. So a very pleasant all the members and the participants, and thank you for taking out the time to attend yet another webinar on budget updates. And suffice to say, although there usually isn't any agreement on how good a budget is, but this one has a lot of people praising it, appreciating it. The budget is the right thing at the right time. A lot of people have said, we'll be understanding, although not a lot of major amendments from the business side, slight easing on a couple of points, major amendments on obviously on the personal taxation side. And so we'll be covering all of them. And let's, as usual, the agenda will obviously entail direct tax and then GST law. And the third topic, which is a personal favorite, and then obviously questions and discussions, the part which I look most forward to. So just before I start, screen is visible and audio volume is perfect for everybody, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, I'll just switch off the setting. Now coming to the first aspect, which is economic outlook. These are some statistics from the economic survey, right? There has been slight slowdown, moderation in the financial growth in 2025, which is 6.4% as compared to to 8.2% in financial year 2024. There has been a slowdown in urban consumption, which was basically the theme because of which key amendments were brought in the personal taxation regime to give people more money in their hands to be able to spend. That was the whole objective of there was, sorry, one second, I'll just switch on the marker, 1 second. So you have your 6% versus the 8.2% growth. So that is the primary theme. There are multiple factors, geopolitical factors, economic factors being into play, but suffice to say 2025, the first half will essentially see a slowdown in all activity and even in business. And I think as business owners, every one of you is primed to see what exactly is happening and how it's going. So with that backdrop, let's go to the first amendment, what has happened in the personal taxation regime changes. Now you're aware that there are two basic tax regimes that exist in India. The government is basically trying to move all of the individuals from the old tax regime to the new tax regime. It has a couple of benefits. One is that the tax rates and the tax slabs are significantly lower. The rebate is significantly lower. So in the new regime now, effective up to 12,75,000 rupees, not 12 lakh, your entire income is tax free. Why? It's because of two pertinent factors. One is the tax slabs have been rejected only in the new personal tax regime, not in the old tax regime. So if you're still wanting to opt for ATC, ATD, and all of those, ATG, etc., then in that case, old tax regime will not give you the advantage of the reject tax slabs, which have resulted in nil tax liability of 12 lakhs and 75,000 standard deduction. So effectively, for all practical purposes, it's going to be 12 lakhs 75,000. A strong recommendation for everyone to really consider moving to new personal tax regime if you're a salary earner, or encourage employees to move to the new personal tax regime. Why? One, it reduces payroll cost overheads where you have to verify tax proofs. Two, slightly easy to administer. Three, on the whole, the old tax regime will see a phase out in the next couple of budgets, and it's increasingly becoming difficult to move from the new tax regime to the old one. So the government basically is aligning everything to the new personal tax regime, which sees major rejig in the individual taxes. So that's a big thing. No changes in corporate income tax rates have taken place. So essentially, the biggest headline amendment would be this. Moving on to the next, so these are the revised tax slabs. Let me just erase the. Yeah, these are the revised tax slabs. You have earlier from 0 to 3 lakhs, it was nil. Now it's 0 to 4 lakhs. So essentially, now the 30% tax slab will hit above 24 lakh rupees. So overall reduction. In fact, we were doing a CTC structure planning for someone just a couple of days back for the next financial year. And in fact, it was heartening to see that on a CTC of approximately 42 lakh rupees, the employee was getting approximately 34 lakhs in hand. This after the provident fund deduction. So in hand salary definitely is going to increase even at higher tax slab rates. So definitely a big addition to the new tax regime. There has been a small amendment. If you were filing your income tax returns, you were required to revise the returns up till 31st December. Now, a lot of times what happens is you come to discover that there was a transaction which was missed out, in which case there was a return known as ITRU. ITRU allowed you to pay additional tax on the return before any litigation took place, and the timeline for that was 24 months from the end of the assessment year. Now that has been increased to 48 months. However, there is additional tax payment which you will be required to do, but this will effectively save you from any sort of litigation by allowing you to revise and pay the additional tax yourself before the government picks it up. So this is quite practically it's a very relevant assessment. Yes, I understand the tax rates are onerous, but it at least gives you a scope to declare that additional income, or maybe let's say in a lot of cases we see NRIs, or we see a lot of business owners where a transaction has taken place, they forgot to disclose it in the return, sale of property, etc., and they forgot to discharge the tax. What would have happened earlier was that if the 31st December timeline would have passed, then you did not have eligibility or the time to be able to revise the return. Now you do have with an additional amount of tax. I think it's beneficial if you consider revising the tax around this timeline, which is 0 to 12 months and 12 to 24 months. We just erase all the drawings. So two major amendments. A small amendment in house property, pertinent to keep in mind. What I'll just elaborate a little bit on the house property amendment. Basically, prior to this, to qualify for nil valuation, owners had to meet certain conditions, such as being unable to occupy the property, etc., etc. Now, what essentially its simplified version is that two properties can be considered to be nil taxable, and can be considered to be self-occupied. A lot of members would be aware when they're filing their returns, one property can always be declared as self-occupied and no tax was required to be paid on that. No notional rent was required to be paid on that. Now that benefit is extended to two properties without any preconditions. So if it is not self-occupied, the other property, for any reason, it will be considered to be nil. So essentially, practically, now two properties you can consider to be self-occupied starting from 1st April 2025, and you don't have to pay notional rent on that property. Slight rejigging, actually a major rejigging in 194I, which is the payment of TDS on rent by companies and by businesses. Earlier it was 2,40,000 during the financial year. Now it's been expanded to 50,000 per month or part of a month. So if you're paying rent for any premises, commercial, residential, from your business, I repeat, this amendment is from the perspective of your business, not your individual rent that you pay. From the business perspective, you're not required to now deduct TDS on the rent if it does not exceed 50,000 per month or part of the month. Similarly, slight amendment in 194J for fees for technical and professional services, where the earlier limit was 30,000. And this has been, I think, a demand for a lot of time to increase the threshold for 194J. I don't see that as a major increase, but yes, keeping in view with inflation, they've increased the threshold payment to INR 50,000 per person per financial year. This is a table. Obviously I'll be circulating this PPT. This is a table for all the major changes that have taken place in the TDS law. The pertinent ones and the practically relevant one for all the members we've discussed in the previous slide. So I'll just move on to the next one. A couple of changes, slight easing in TCS provisions, members are aware that whenever they were remitting money exceeding 7 lakh rupees, TCS was being charged. Now that limit has been extended to 10 lakh rupees from 7 lakhs. I don't see this as a very major relief. The TCS is still prohibitive, but irrespective, you get a credit of the TCS back naturally, and the limit now is 10 lakh rupees for tour packages, etc. I've also put in the detailed guidelines on where all the TCS threshold has been increased in the next slide. One interesting amendment was that previously, when you were purchasing goods and if your turnover was more than 10 crore rupees, you were required to charge TCS on your sales and deduct TDS on your purchases in case of goods. Now the TCS on sale part has been basically abolished. So now the only thing that you need to think about when you're purchasing goods is TDS of 0.1% needs to be deducted if your turnover in the previous financial year was more than 10 crore rupees. So there is no TCS on sale of goods anymore. So the only thing that is required from you if your turnover is more than 10 crores in the previous financial year is to basically deduct TDS on the purchase of goods. Similarly, there was a provision which required, and I think it was becoming a big headache for compliance teams, which required that if someone has not filed their ITR, you were required to deduct a higher rate of TDS. Now, it was becoming very difficult for companies to detect who had filed, who had not filed, even though there was a portal which allowed you to go through, but it added an additional compliance step. So basically that requirement has now been rationalized. The provisions for providing higher TDS, TCS for non-filer is proposed to be deleted. So effective 1st April, you can go back to your old system of deducting TDS, just deduct TDS, TCS as per the applicable laws. If you have a PAN, if you don't have a PAN, you don't have to worry about the fact whether the deductee has deducted, whether the deductee has filed his ITR or not. A slight bit about the TCS thresholds. Purchase of overseas program tour packages gone from 7 lakh rupees to 10 lakh rupees. Sorry, 5% till 10 lakh rupees. LRS for medical treatment education. So all these slabs have basically been extended from 7 lakh to 10 lakh rupees. This slide is obviously there for reference. GST, although has not seen major amendments, there is a small amendment in case of input service distributors. Their earlier input service distributors basically is a form of registration. If you have multiple branches in multiple states, there is a centralized distributor which avails the services in a particular state and distributes that credit to other states. Earlier, what was happening was that if an input service distributor was paying RCM on certain services it had procured, it could not distribute that credit, which resulted in a cost of that credit not being eligible. Now they've amended the ISD provisions, and under the revised provisions, the head office acting as an ISD can distribute ITC from reverse charge services it avails to other branches also. Just a small illustration on how this operates is, for example, if you have a input service distributor and you have 3 branches, let's say branch A, branch B and branch C. The services it is availed, it was earlier able to distribute to A, B and C. Now the restriction earlier was that if this ISD was paying GST under RCM or reverse charge method, it was unable to distribute that to the different branches. Now even this has been covered effective 1st April 2025. I can distribute it. So seamless flow of ITC is essentially now allowed with input service distributors. I'm sure it doesn't really impact a lot of ISODA members because most of them have single state or 2 state offices. But in case you do think about ISG, because ISG is a mandate, if you have multiple branches, then you don't have to worry about your working capital being blocked in GST anymore. You can avail the GST which has been paid by the ISG. A small revision in, so let me highlight once again, in GST and in customs law, most of the amendments usually take place through the GST council. So lately what we have been seeing is post GST, not a lot of amendments come through the budget. They're basically enabling provisions. A lot of the policy decisions are taken place through GST council meetings, which we keep updating you from time to time. But sometimes there is a minor change in GST law, and there is a slight ease of compliance in terms of customs duty. Importers and importers can now revise their bill of entries. Earlier, if a bill of entry was filed, it was very difficult to revise it. Enabling provision has now been put to allow importers, exporters to revise their bill of entries in case maybe classification is wrong or some benefit has not been taken for refund or payment purposes. However, this is not allowed during investigation, audit, or reassessment. So there's a whole stress upon easing. So what we saw in the Income Tax Act, which allowing the person to revise their ITR after 2 years and now 48 months from the assessment. A similar thing has been posted in customs. The whole funda of the government seems to be trust first, scrutinize later. This was a statement which was passed during the budget speech also, which is basically envisages that you will trust the information that is being provided by the taxpayer. It will be scrutinized later, but the trust factor will be placed initially. One key amendment which I think escaped a lot of scrutiny during the time when budget speech was being done is that there is a proposal to broaden the investment and turnover criteria for becoming an MSME. The existing criteria is stated here. The revised criteria, significantly higher, is stated here. What this basically means now is that the more enterprises will be able to avail MSME benefits who were outside the purview of these thresholds. So now once the new MSME, obviously this change if notified in the MSME Act, from that date onwards you will be able to register under MSME if you were above this criteria but below this criteria. So yes, we will see a significant amount of companies now registering more for MSME. I think there'll be a question from members about what happened to the law where you were supposed to pay the MSME within 15-45 days, otherwise your expenses will be disallowed. It was envisaged that this will be put forth in the budget, but no amendment has been made. That amendment and that requirement still stands. So the government is still serious from the perspective of the law that payments to MSMEs need to be made on time. However, all of us understand that the practical implementation is still a challenge. So, although not a lot of major amendments in the budgets, these are the ones which practically have an impact on the members. Before I start with the next session, which would cover common and newer amendments in AI and newer tools which we have seen and which we believe as business owners will help you, I would like to open the floor a little bit for questions. And the questions can be pertaining to the budget. They can be anything and everything. So just opening the floor for questions.
Do we have any questions from the members till now?
Dhruv, can you clarify on the TDS provision on goods? You said TCS is abolished, but TDS. So when you say goods,
right?
So can you just and
Yes.
what is the difference between today and
I'll just explain sir with an example.
Yeah.
Just take I'll open the relevant slide. Sir, the law basically a couple of years back, the Finance Act or the budget came with a law. If you are a trader of goods, by trader of goods I obviously mean that you're not just engaged in services, you are purchasing and or selling goods, right? And if your turnover in the previous financial year, the year preceding the one which you're operating in, exceeded 10 crore rupees. So the first threshold is, if this is the condition that you're meeting, then only you need to hear me out. Otherwise, for the next 2-3 minutes, you can just mute me, not a problem. If your turnover in the previous financial year was greater than 10 crores, whenever you were selling some goods, you were required to charge TCS on it. And when you were purchasing some goods, you were required to deduct TDS on it. The rate was very marginal, it was 0.1%, but obviously it was a compliance headache. And what had to happen was that you had to go to your customer and ask whether you are deducting TDS or not, or should I charge TCS, because obviously both the things can't happen. Similarly, when you were dealing with a vendor, you would have had to ask him, are you charging TCS or not, or should I deduct the TDS? Now this leg has been abolished. The only thing operational now is the TDS aspect of the transaction. So you have to just worry about whether the TDS is deducted or not on all your purchases.
So whether TDS is applicable or not on the transaction, does it matter or it
Sir,
doesn't
purchase
matter?
of goods. If your
Yeah.
turnover is more than 10 crores in the previous financial year, and if you're purchasing goods,
Yeah.
essentially there's another condition that if you're paying to the party more than 50 lakhs a year. I'm not mentioning that because most of the clients and most of the SOIDA members, it's easier to just start deducting TDS if your turnover is 10 crore. So TDS is applicable on purchase of goods if your turnover is more than 10 crores in previous financial year and the amount you've paid for purchase in that financial year is more than 50 lakhs. So then you have to deduct TDS at 0.1% on all the purchase of goods.
Okay, thanks.
Overall, now you don't have to worry about the TCS. That's essentially what has been done. You just have to worry about one leg of the transaction.
Right. Thanks.
For your sale, your customer will worry whether he has deducted TDS or not. Significant easing because TDS
Dhruv,
is
Dhruv, do we need to wait till the purchase of goods has crossed 50 lakhs and then proceed with the deduction? Or
as per the book, theoretically, yes. But point is, sir, it's very difficult to keep track of the vendors jinke saath purchases have exceeded 50 lakhs. So what we just say is कि यार start of the year say start deducting TDS. It'll just be easier. Tomorrow you need to so let's say tomorrow you're faced for income tax scrutiny. आपकी total purchases from that party is let's say 30 crore rupees. It's easier to justify ना कि 30 crores पे look I've deducted 0.1% rather than say कि no 30 crores पे I've deducted it on 29 lakh 50,000 sorry 30 crores के बजाय I've deducted it on 29 crore 50 lakhs. So it's just easier to do it from the first get go. So but yes, by the book you can wait till 50 lakhs.
okay.
Dhruv, this is Kavita Singhal
Hello.
pertaining to this, purchase of goods.
Right.
So earlier also we were doing the same thing that, the moment your purchase becomes more than 50 lakhs from a single supplier,
Right.
then we are deducting TDS.
Yes, absolutely.
So how does it matter? Because earlier also we were deducting TDS and now also we continue to deduct TDS.
So that remains the same, ma'am. What was happening was that when you were selling your goods, right, you
हाँ,
would have had to worry about the fact कि whether your customer is deducting TDS on the sales you do. Otherwise, you would have had to charge TCS to him.
okay.
Now this requirement is abolished. मतलब basically now the onus is on the purchaser on every side. Earlier you had to worry as a seller also and as a purchaser also.
Okay, perfectly all right.
Huh.
Now another question is because the licenses what we sell they come under the they are not goods, they are the services.
So
So in that case, if our sale is more than maybe 50 lakhs or a crore, and we give them the TDS declaration, so is there a liability for a customer to deduct TDS, or are we supposed to charge TCS? Is there a liability when we
so
do the sale of services?
Anji. So first question is that sale of electronic licenses with SSC code 99 are not perceived by the department as goods. For them, goods is something which is physically transported.
Okay. Yeah.
So we are not here. The department's definition of goods is very different from the GST. So GST might just say ki, so department perceives that electronic sale of license is sale of services, right? That's the common understanding. So you are not required to charge TCS on the sale of software licenses.
Okay.
Because it's not goods. Now comes the question of whether TDS needs to be deducted. See, that's the prerogative again of the customer, and then that will depend upon the notification that multi-level whether you give or not. So, that's another question. The first
Right.
question is whether it's goods or not. No, it's not goods.
Okay. Thank you.
So on hardware, basically, I think the colloquial term to use here would be think of TCS and TDS or this section which I'm talking about only to be applicable in case of hardware, not software.
Okay.
Dhruv, Nikhil this side.
So,
there are a lot of customers of our where we are providing electronic goods, right? Services
Right,
and cybersecurity solutions.
right,
Most of our customers are deducting 10% of TDS.
right.
We have also provided them 194J declaration, but still they are, rigid to have that TDS deduction. Somehow we are able to convince them for 2%, but how we can mitigate this? How we can convince them that, yeah.
Sir, see, theoretically, first I'll answer it. Theoretically, they're not supposed to deduct the TDS. Why? Because you're selling a copyrighted article. You're merely reselling software licenses, right?
Hmm.
One.
Hmm.
Two is that you've given the multi-level TDS deduction declaration on your invoice, right?
Yes.
The problem is that deductors act from their side. So deductors act safe that it's better for us to just deduct the TDS without realizing that it's a working capital issue for the seller. Right? Now
Yes.
I can so now one is that on multiple occasions you can send them write-ups, you can send them exact quotation of the law, but they will still at the end of the day might just come back to you and say, okay, we'll deduct it, you too will get credit, which I'm sure would be the answer that's coming, right?
Right. And when we are deducting the same amount to our distributor, it
Right,
is going to be, they are providing us the TDS, will not be able to do it.
right,
So
right.
definitely working capital of 10%
It gets blocked.
is huge amount.
Right. So then see, so practically, yes, this is happening. Practically, the only solution to this would obviously be key. There comes a simple clear-cut amendment of what is software in the Income Tax Act. That's not very clearly defined. So
Hmm.
for them, it's perceived, everything is perceived as software and they just deduct it because although the controversy on purchase of software from outside India is pretty much over, sale of software within India still remains an issue. One practical solution, I don't know if it helps, is which I've given to other members also, is to apply for something known as a lower TDS certificate, right? Which allows you to go to the
Hmm.
income
Hmm.
tax
Hmm.
officer
Okay.
and say. Now, and this I've covered in earlier webinars also. There are two types of these certificates. One is TAN linked, the other is non-TAN linked. So non-TAN link means that you can give this
Hmm.
certificate to any customer, even if it's a new one or a recurring one. It's linked to the total amount. So you can just apply one for, let's say, 50 crore rupees. So up till 50 crore rupees, whoever is paying you, irrespective of their TAN number or name, they will deduct the TDS rate at which you've gotten the certificate. So
Hmm. Hmm.
in our experience, that has augured well for a lot of the members because then it just completely it saves both, right? It saves your working capital and it protects the buyer of.
Yes.
So so that's something which I can strongly.
We are getting from few of the distributor this. And
It's
is there
now
any
become normal.
minimum threshold for getting this
Sir, the
certificate?
law honestly says that you need to have at least 100 deductees for you to be able to apply this. कि मतलब 100 से ज़्यादा deductees, 100 से ज़्यादा deductees होने चाहिए, मतलब deductors, sorry.
Hmm.
But you
Great.
can
Means
just say that,
customers.
so you can just, they don't ask for the list of customers. You can just put it on declaration. यार, I'm going to have a bumper year. मेरे तो 100 से ज़्यादा के 1000 से ज़्यादा customers होंगे. वो होए ना होए,
Hmm.
nobody's coming to check.
No, so there was a
Got it.
question. Suppose we say
Opt-in
that
will,
and it doesn't
opt-in will,
happen, then is
opt,
there any action taken?
sorry, sir. No, 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 no. Absolutely, sir. It is
Ah,
no, not at all. It is just a data point.
okay.
To go next month for revision. See, department officers are not really bothered about
Hmm.
whether you will have those customers. They are able to issue this certificate by if you file it under the right section, they'll give you a certificate, right?
Right, right. Okay.
And they don't honestly when you go and apply for it, all they're worried about is ki, how much revenue are we losing. If you're able to satisfy them, ki, look, I'm not ending a refund situation even with this rate of TDS, they're
Hmm.
that's all you need to convince them for. They're not really,
Hmm.
my practical experience, not really bothered by the 100 deductors criteria.
Hmm. Because I think by this we'll be able to, once we are giving, so we are able to, not getting 10% of working capital of R. Getting this certification will definitely give us the threshold that we
Right,
are saving 8% of or 7.5 or 8.5, whatever tax rate we are getting after the certificate.
right,
So this
absolutely.
is good for us. So we have to do it on a yearly basis, or it will
Yes, yearly,
it is okay,
yearly basis.
yearly basis. Thank you, Dhruv.
Any other questions in terms of
Dhruv, I have one more question. Like is not pertaining to today's session,
Right,
but this is regarding MSME.
right,
So, when we make purchases from any MSME,
right,
as per the rule, we are supposed to make the payment within 45 days. So, in regular routine, it works. But in case of government orders, where we work in collaboration,
right.
so sometimes what happens is payment could be back to back or different terms. So, what
Right.
happens if we don't make the payment of the MSME in 45 days, within 45 days, but our purchase order is very clear on terms, whether it's 90 days or once we receive the payment from customer. So, how would it work in that scenario?
Unfortunately, ma'am, this is pretty much clear in terms of ki if even the purchase order says a period of more than 45 days, it will revert back to 45 days as per MSME law. So, a lot of, I think the reason why they got this, sorry for the video, the reason why they got this maybe was because they felt that a PO can basically override the provisions of MSME. So they specifically said that PO cannot override the provisions of MSME. If it's more than 45, it will revert back to 45 for the MSME law.
No, so what should we do to safeguard ourselves? Because payments cannot be done within 45 days when we work with government. So, I mean, is there something that, the seller would
Hmm.
raise some, complaint on the portal? How does it happen actually? If you can just explain a
अब
little
आप
bit of the
अब
process.
आप कह रहे हो कि वो ट्रेड सीक्रेट सारे लीक कर दें on a public that see, at the end of the day, that is the only solution that I see, and practically discuss that if there is any evidence of a dispute, obviously then that period starts from when the dispute is technically resolved. See,
Okay.
I think, see, now, strictly, obviously, I can't say off the record here, but I perceive that as long as the MSME vendor is on board with your payment cycles and is not technically looking to, litigate against you, I think that's one problem solved. The other problem that could come, so that, let's say that's the first problem that you solved, right? And you have an understanding with the person. The second level problem would be that if you have the income tax auditor, whoever is auditing your requirement, that person can come and say, you have not paid in 45 days, so it should be disallowed. So I think the real management that has to happen is the end of March payments, because before March, so during the year, everything gets plus minus.
Okay.
But post March, because your disallowance might strike, that's the time you need to be a little careful about what exactly is happening.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll just reshare the screen one second. Any other questions? I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be pertaining to the budget session. Any challenges that members are perceiving in terms of day-to-day compliances, etc., or any so if that's the case, then maybe we can just move to the next session. I just wanted to open and on the third part of the question, and just wanted to understand, just I'll enable my own video. I just wanted to understand, and I think this is an open discussion on what we've lately been seeing in terms of the use of AI tools, etc. For example, there have been some latest models which Google AI Studio
अच्छा अच्छा हाँ प्यान कौन है एक और आ रहे थे
Google AI Studio and other newer models which have helped. So one thing I would like to sort of cover is, and the first caveat being that obviously there are data privacy concerns when you're sharing documents with AI. Obviously it can use it for training data. That concern being obviously aside, how we can practically use it, I just wanted to demonstrate how we have been seeing the use of this, and what is a latest tool apart from ChatGPT that most of you are using. ChatGPT limits its major functionality to ChatGPT limits its major functionality to the paid versions of it, which allows you to upload files, etc. Where you need a nifty and a good tool to be used without paying with a large token amount. Token amount means with the amount of content and data that you can put is significantly large, you can actually just go to a site which is known as AI Studio Google. aistudio.google.com, that's the name of the website. I'll just paste it here also. aistudio.google.com. This is available for any Gmail or Google based account, and it is significantly powerful, and we have been seeing a lot of return from it. So a couple of things. One would be that there are three modes here. One is to basically create a prompt, the other is stream real time. Now this is a feature which we have seen is actually, for the want of a better word, a game changer. What it does is it allows you to share your screen with Gemini and explain a problem. So for example, you're struggling with an Excel formula or a solution, or if you have, let's say, you're browsing and you see a table. So let's say I'm browsing and I let's say I go to money control, and I'll just share the screen for this. So let's say I'm at money control and I'm browsing a particular news item and I'm able to understand it. I want to understand how this impacts me, etc. I hope I'm able to share the screen. So what I can just do is I can go here and press share the screen, and I can just tell which tab I wanted to share. So let's say I wanted to share the money control tab. I'll say how do I want the how do I want the audio output. I want it in text format. I can't do it in audio because it can also speak to you, but I can't display that on the screen, but I'll explain how. So I share my screen and I tell it I want to share this tab. Now this tab is shared and it's able to view the tab, and then I will give it instructions. I am browsing this page and I'm unable to understand some news items. What does this essentially mean? And what does this news actually mean? Can you just help me explain in easy terms? So as you can see, I was browsing and I can actually ask for immediate help on what is the thing, what is a systemic investment plan. I will zoom the screen to explain. What is a systemic investment plan? What is a mutual fund? I can just go here and say that, okay, let me just give it another instruction. You can see this stock action screen which shows the most active stocks today. Can you just summarize it in a table for me and help it explain it to me in easy format, which all stocks were the most active, and draft an email to be sent to a client stating that these were the active stocks today. So when you talk about OCR tools where you're seeing something on the screen, there's a table, you want it to be transcribed, this is, I think, the easiest solution for you to use. You can see that the draft mail that has the accurate data from that website, and as a dear client has a summary of today's most active top gaining stocks from NSE. You can just copy paste the email and circulate it. That's one example. Let's move on to another one. It's a simple example of where I have a Google sheet, and in that Google sheet I have some, let's say, raw data. I insert some raw data. Let's say project name, and I'm unable to. Yeah, so here's a Google sheet. I'll just insert some. I'll just open an existing Google sheet. Just a second. Or any website, any sort of a code base or any sort of Excel. Let's try and do it. I'll share my entire screen and discuss where I can analyze or get some improvement in terms of Excel. Just a second, I'll just share the screen. I'll start a new stream and I will tell the share my screen, and I want to share the entire screen. In my screen, I'm helping it to see a so sorry, this so yes, so it's actually listening. Here is an Excel sheet that I'm explaining it to you. Can you just summarize it and tell me what is it that I'm seeing, and help me understand this data that has been provided to me by my accountant? I think it's so it was able to see the Excel sheet, and it's been helped me explain that this here is a summary of the Excel sheet. It's a spreadsheet listing invoices, associated recipient names, etc. So the possibilities are essentially endless. I'll just share the screen again. The next part which significantly does is, for example, here you have the option of recording audio or uploading a file. Let's see how essentially it is able to file. I have an agreement here. For example, let me upload a PDF copy of an agreement. Here is an invoice which I am uploading, which I have raised to the client. I can basically say that provide me the details of this invoice in a tabular format. So now I have it in a tabular format, and similarly I can just upload maybe, let's say, 10 invoices here and summarize it in a tabular format, and I can just paste this data into Excel. So I was reading a news article which stated that the cost of OCRing or transcribing 5,000 PDFs with Google AI Studio or the Google API was approximately just $5. So this is going to automate a lot of workflows. For example, your legal agreement, you can just set up a prompt, enter all of your legal agreements here, maybe 5-6 legal agreements, and say define and tell me the clauses where you see issues in terms of the legal agreement, and it will summarize that. If you have, let's say, we were trying to do it for some internal audit data where we had some PDFs of expense reimbursements which were given to employees. We were able to upload it on Google AI Studio and ask AI Studio that in each reimbursement, can you please check if the approval has been given by the relevant approving authority, and it was able to transcribe it. So this is the token count, this is the token length, which means that this is the maximum amount of data it can enter. This part is the temperature, and if you also need to do some search, if you wanted to search the internet, you can just say grounding with Google search, which is the option here. Then it will search only on the internet. So let's say, what are the views of stock market experts on budget 2025 in a tabular format with Hindi translation. Let's try and give it a slightly difficult prompt and see how it's performing. So this has actually searched the internet, given me the relevant references, and provided me a tabular format of the information along with relevant references and a Hindi translation of the same. So it is essentially limited by now your imagination. You are free to even, for example, when we have to fill up certain forms and we have to prepare a standard operating procedure, it becomes significantly easy for you to just do a stream real time and tell it to record your screen, and you can just speak to it while recording your screen and say that this is the process that I'm doing, please convert it into a standard operating procedure document. For example, you're working on your CRM and you want there to be a resource where your staff members can check whether how to operate the CRM, and it becomes very difficult for you to write the SOPs. Maybe there's a churn in the staff, so you can just spend 15-20 minutes, enter the data in the CRM while recording the screen by talking to Gemini Live, and in the end you can, with a text-based output selection, you can just tell that, look, summarize this into a SOP, and then you can just paste that SOP on your intranet, which can then be accessed by everybody. So a lot of YouTube tutorials, etc., everything which video you can make a standard operating procedure, and the possibilities are endless in terms of Excel formula, formatting a document, learning a new software, anything which you need help with. you can get live assistance, and we've seen significant return on investment on using this. Essentially, it's free. Stream real time allows you to stream for approximately 10 minutes, which is a significant amount of time for you to interact. So that's essentially covering a new AI tool. If you do have any questions, because we've spent significant amount of time as a firm on this, would be happy to answer. Or if you have any feedback or experience in implementing internally in your organizations, would love to hear it. Any feedback, any?
This was all, Dhruv. I believe people may want to take some more time to internalize and digest what you just told. But obviously, since I've been it quite carefully, and whatever you did, I tried on my own simultaneously. So I did find it quite interesting enough. Thank you for that.
Okay. I think it will take a significant amount of initial time investment to grow comfortable, but I personally feel that once a little time is invested, it becomes a good tool. I've seen adoption in my office also for automating certain tasks, and it has yielded benefit. Yes, it will take an initial, there's an initial trough of time investment which needs to be invested in any of these tools, except that this just democratizes access to it. There's no paid tier here, so it gives you chance to experiment across all levels.
Yeah, thanks for drawing the attention. Surely, I mean, it's much different from the ChatGPT free version, whatever it provides, no?
Right.
Thank you for drawing attention.
So with that, I mean, obviously floor is open for questions.
This is available in ChatGPT also, Dhruv?
Sorry, sir?
This screen sharing is available in ChatGPT also?
But no, so there is availability in the mobile app, but it doesn't work as good as Google AI Studio does, because it processes quickly. I think they have more compute and more experience in processing videos because of the vast YouTube access. So this works significantly better. ChatGPT does have that feature, but in the paid version for one, and it doesn't work as well as this one.
Okay.
For example, if you were to, let's say, put 10 to 15 PDF files, ChatGPT might just fail, but this Google AI has a large context length, which means the amount of data you can give it before a query is significantly higher.
Even this Google AI Studio, if you are wanting to do the assessment of your website,
SEO,
so,
absolutely.
yeah. So you just put your website
Right.
and do the 2-3 prompts of assessment. Then it will give you the complete gap analysis that how your website should be, your SEO should be. It's a very powerful, very powerful.
So if I just, let's say I'm sharing the money controls page and I say suggest SEO tips to optimize performance and how to market this page. So obviously I get the initial on-page optimizations, etc. I can do technical SEO, XML sitemaps, marketing strategy, start a blog focusing on financial advice, search engine ad with Google Ads, key consideration. So you can then fine tune the queries and say, okay, are the ads on the left and the right appearing? Do they look aesthetic? Where else should I place my ad? So yeah, it's almost like a live feedback of what you're seeing. So thank you, sir, for that example. I mean, it didn't strike me. A lot of people have been using it for SEO.
So you should also look at to Google LM.
Notebook
It's
LM. I wanted to cover that, sir. I mean, if I
that is another fantastic tool. Fantastic.
we have 5 minutes. If you want, I could probably just cover it quickly if members are.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah. Please do it, Dhruv.
So there's another tool. So one we've seen Google AI Studio. Let me just stop the share and open it in a new. I'll just share my entire window here. So Google Notebook LM is a tool which a lot of people refer to it as RAG based tools. RAG based tools, I'll just explain what RAG is: retrieval augmented generation. What it does is that when you are using an LLM or when you are using any LLM, it has a problem of hallucination. It might just go off track and not get limited to your sources. What Google envisage with this tool is that it will be limited only to the sources you provided here. Uh, so each notebook has sources. These sources can be your Google Drive documents, they can be website links, YouTube links. So for example, if I am on YouTube and there's this 3-hour video, let's actually go to and on YouTube, please don't mind my watch history, but let's say what ISODA uh, uh, and let's see, let's say there's a Friday Connect episode of ISODA and making your organization CSR sensitive. Now, I don't have time to maybe, although it will be a very good session of for 56 minutes, I can just copy the link of this YouTube video and let me just set up a notebook with this. Create new notebook, add a source, YouTube video, paste the URL. So now all the queries and all the AI analysis will be limited to what this video is saying. And now once it's created a notebook, there are a couple of options. One, it can create a podcast of what this video is saying. You can just record this podcast and listen, right? You can create FAQs of this video. So let's press FAQs and see what it can do.
Podcast is superb. Yeah.
Podcast is brilliant. It's
Amazing. I write only 3 lines and it gives me a 5-minute podcast conversation.
And it allows you to chat with the document. So what is this video talking about in 5 bullet points? So even there are 50 options. You can actually put up till 50 videos. So let's say you're researching on a particular topic on how to optimize sales strategy. You can go and check the videos of all the good sales coaches and record their just copy their links, paste it over here, and then you can just talk to those 50 videos at once rather than listening to them on one-on-one. So here are 5 bullet points along with the references. So they'll give the reference of where in the YouTube video it is. So here's a 5-point summary on what the video is saying. Introduction to HK and its functioning, rights of person with disability, accessibility and inclusion, and here's an FAQ. And I can essentially ask it I can get an audio overview, a briefing document. I can even get a timeline. So let's say I'm listening to some historic video and I want a timeline of what is going on. I can even do that. Sources are unimaginable. I can even copy text, Google Drives, any form of file, PDF, audio, MP3. There are 50 sources which are eligible. So you can just create. So how I used it was that there are a lot of Foreign Exchange Management Act notifications which keep coming, and I needed a good base for me and my staff members to use and reference. So whatever latest FEMA circular comes, I just put it in this source, and then I can just talk to those circulars and ask, okay, is this transaction permissible or not? And I can get references from the relevant circulars. So with GPT, sometimes it hallucinates, gives wrong references. Here it will limit itself to the source, so your accuracy is significantly better. So
accurate information coming out.
It is retrieval augmented generation where
yes. What you're saying, exactly right word.
It's a RAG agent. So one of the very good RAG agents. It's solving a problem which right now I feel LLMs couldn't have solved, and it's solving it beautifully. So do give it a try. It's free for any Gmail account or Google G Suite account user.
Before they start charging.
No, they've actually come up with a Notebook LM Plus where more than 50 notebooks you have to pay, but even the free tier is, I think, pretty good.
Very nice. Worth trying.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dhruv, for highlighting this.
Especially the YouTube. Thank you for sort of. The YouTube feature is pretty good. It allows you to just interact with 10 to 15 YouTube videos at once. That part is good.
No, I've been using it. I'm creating the podcast and sending it to my client. So my client is really liking it. It's like that. Wow, from where did you get this?
So there are no copyright violations here?
No, it is not.
No, you're creating a podcast about,
podcast of myself only.
Okay.
You're creating a podcast You go and create, you'll understand. Write only few lines about your company and see the podcast created.
Okay.
Thanks, Dhruv.
Yeah, thank you. So with that, although open for questions, but with that, putting an end to this session with a happy weekend to all the members, and thank you for attending this session.
Thank you, Dhruv. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dhruv.
As always, thanks, Dhruv.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for highlighting the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Dhruv.
So,
Thank you.
everybody have, hope
Thank you.
everybody has got Dhruv's email ID. So you can disturb him for any other things also related to financials and accounting. So he's every time available, and I see him responding as quick as possible, whenever he can. Thanks, Dhruv. Continue doing a good work.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Dhruv. It was a good session.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Samina, you can call off the meeting. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay.